Hello, everybody. Today we're going to discuss Lucretia Mott. I chose Lucretia Mott because she shares a birthday with my sister. She was born January 3rd, 1793, in Nantucket, Massachusetts. She was one of 5 children and was raised a Quaker. She grew up believing that men and women are equal in the eyes of the Lord and saw this come true from her own family. Both her parents worked, and her father raised his children to live with a strong purpose. She watched her mother run a store, setting Lucretia's tone for what her values are and would become. Lucretia was a fierce abolitionist and founded the Philadelphia Female Anti-Slavery Society in 1833. In 1840, she and her husband James were selected as delegates to the World Anti-Slavery Convention in London. And finally, in 1848, she and Elizabeth Cady Stanton launched a women's rights convention in Seneca Falls, New York. Let's first start by discussing her role in the Philadelphia Female Anti-Slavery Society. The Philadelphia Female Anti-Slavery Society was created in December of 1833. This was a time in our history where abolitionist movement was not very popular. There were many stories during that time that included mob violence against abolitionists. Lucretia did not care and continued to dream of her vision of every human being having equal rights. This society was interracial from the beginning and included African American businessmen with their families. The goal of the society was to emancipate slavery, and by doing so, they would help with the Underground Railroad. They would supply a place to stay, protection if needed, and transportation to escaped slaves. The Philadelphia Female Anti-Slavery Society was beneficial to all humans until it was disbanded in 1870. This disbandment happened because of the ratification of the 15th Amendment, which prohibited each government in the United States from denying a citizen the right to vote based on what a citizen's, and I quote, race, color, and previous condition of servitude. Lucretia was able to live and see this amendment added to the Constitution, knowing that her efforts helped shape this amendment to be added. Next, let's review how her and her husband were selected for the World Anti-Slavery Convention in London. Lucretia Mott was already well known for being a Quaker preacher and wanting to have all humans with equal rights. She led a delegation of women to the 1840 Anti-Slavery Convention in London. She and her husband James were prepared to attend this event, yet only James was allowed a seat because Lucretia was a woman. She met fellow abolitionist Elizabeth Cady Stanton there, who also had the unpleasant, life-changing event. And this is where both women were ushered away to a roped-off area hidden from view of all the participants. This convention became famously known for not allowing women delegates to attend. The decision to exclude women produced more discrimination in the eyes of Lucretia and Elizabeth. The women finally were allowed inside the event, but they were to take part on the balcony, and their voices were not heard. So their sole purpose for attending this event was to speak, and they were not allowed to speak. And while they weren't allowed to speak, the convention was still considered a success because many of the attendees that were there were British. And these attendees wrote letters to religious leaders and sovereigns of slave trading nations with accusations that their actions, or lack thereof of their actions, were condoning slavery. The British and foreign anti-slavery societies thereafter explicitly devoted themselves to the, and I quote, the universal extinction of slavery and the slave trade and the protection of rights and interests of the enfranchised population in the British possessions and of all persons captured as slaves. Yet since Lucretia and Elizabeth were not allowed to take part, they formed what we're going to discuss next, the Women's Right Convention in Seneca Falls, New York. After Lucretia and Elizabeth were denied participation at the World's Anti-Slavery Convention, they decided to bring their fight home and boldly stood up against the crowd. They launched a women's rights convention in Seneca Falls, New York. Lucretia wanted to make a strong point and wrote the Declaration of Sentiments, which was reworking the Declaration of Independence. Lucretia's declaration included that all men and women are created equal. 68 women and 32 men, including Lucretia's husband James and Mr. Frederick Douglass himself, who attended this controversial event, signed her declarations of sentiments. Lucretia and Elizabeth, during the convention, demanded equal rights for women in all areas of life, including marriage, family, education, and religion. Lucretia strongly believed that the rights of slaves and women went hand in hand, and she fought fiercely for both causes. Lucretia Mott's life ended on November 11th of 1880 at the age of 87, wherein she caught pneumonia and was unable to recover. And while she did not live to see the implementation of the 19th Amendment, which allowed women to vote, she is credited for starting the women's rights movement. This legacy continues today because of her passion of believing that all men and women are created equal. She was a pivotal figure in American history because she was one of the first to lead the fight and founded the Philadelphia Female Anti-Slavery Society. She was selected as a delegate of the World Anti-Slavery Convention in London, yet because she wasn't able to take part, this led to the Women's Right Convention that she hosted. This woman's legacy lives on today, and everyone should know her name and what she stood for. Equal rights for all men and women of every kind and color. Thank you.